and welcome to the very first episode of the Woolly Ferret podcast. My name is Lisa and I'm coming to you from Derbyshire in England, where I live with my husband, my son, a cat, 2 dogs, a budgie and 2 ferrets. We have a house full, yes, plenty of animals which we all love. So what is this podcast and what's it going to be about? Well, it's a podcast about knitting, crochet and sewing predominantly. But hopefully it will also include other crafts as and when I try things out. I hope to include them in the podcast as well. What was my motivation for podcasting? Well, I like watching podcasts and I like seeing what other people are up to and having a little glimpse into their lives. And I've been wanting to do one myself for quite a while, but never got the courage to do it. So I finally decided now's the time. So here I am. And the other motivation is I want to see if it will encourage me to use my stash. And by stash, I don't just mean wool, I mean other crafting stuff. I have kits that I buy and stash away, planning to make things for various things, soaps and lip balms, and which I have 2 of those kits behind me. And then also books. I have a huge pile of books, small selection here, but I have a lot downstairs on bookshelves, and I tend to buy books because I love reading and I love looking through the pictures and looking at all the craft things, with grand plans to make a lot of the things in these books, and then those plans go out the window when I buy the next book and get lured and seduced by that book, but then they all end up on the bookshelf and I forget to make things out of them. So hopefully this podcast will encourage me to use those as well. So where am I filming? I'm filming in my loft. This is one end of our loft, which will eventually be my crafting area. At the moment it's a mess and I'm surrounded by stuff and I can only just squeeze in here to do a podcast, but I have grand plans for this little area of the loft. Here behind me is a lovely piece of wood that I got in the reduced section at IKEA. I think it was supposed to be a dining room table by the looks of it, but it didn't have any legs, it's just the wood or tabletop. So I'm going to make some legs for that, and it's going to go here, and it really is really wide and long, so hopefully we'll make a really lovely crafting table. So the stuff that's here at the moment will be moved out, and then I've got my sewing machine, hopefully that will go on it. And then behind here, if I can, yep, here is a pegboard, again from IKEA, and it's one of those boards that many crafters have, that you can hook things onto. And I really do need to stop saying because it's driving me nuts, so it must be driving you nuts, so I am sorry about that. So that's enough about me, and I think we'll move on now. Okay, so let's talk about knitting. So knitting. So before we go into what I'm making, I thought we would talk about a workshop that I did recently. So I have made a couple of garments, not knitted garments, 2 crochet garments, both tops, and both of them were extremely large and there was no way they were ever going to fit me. Now I thought I'd got gauge on both, but I think I was really poor at understanding sizing and what size to choose for myself, both based on my shape and how to adjust things. So before I went off into knitting garments, which I haven't done before, so for knitting I've knit socks, which is what I started out learning knitting. I knit socks, and then I've knit mitts and hats, scarves, cows, that sort of thing, but no garment as in a jumper or a top. So I didn't want to be wasting money, more money on sweater quantities of yarn for something that didn't fit. So I decided to book myself onto a workshop and try and figure out what it is I was doing wrong, because similar principles apply for knitting and crochet, although the techniques are going to be different. So the workshop that I went on was a sweater fit workshop, and it was run by Gwen Wagner Adair. We got a leaflet when we attended the workshop, so I will just hold that up and show you the leaflet. And Gwen's details are here. I'll put them up on the screen for you to see. So she is on Ravelry as Gwen Wagner Adair, and she has a Ravelry store, which I'm going to try and pronounce it, but you'll have seen it on the details. Petit Chufleur Knits. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that completely wrong, because I suspect I am. And she also has a website, Petit Chufleur Knits, all one word, co.uk. So I attended that workshop run by Gwen in Leeds, and it was a day workshop, and we stopped for lunch. It was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can highly recommend this workshop. But if you can't get on this workshop, I would recommend, if you are having sizing problems, then it would be worth going on a workshop to gain a better understanding of where you're going wrong. For me, I knew vaguely where I was going wrong, but what I was doing was, I'm quite a large busted lady, so I was choosing garment size based on my bust measurements. And of course, because I'm out of proportion with everywhere else, that garment would never is going to fit me, because it was always going to be too big, because my bust is much larger than in proportion wise than the rest of me. So I was always going to end up with something that was far too big on the shoulders and around the waist. And going on this workshop has made me realise that, and Gwen showed you how to pick a size for you. You do all your measurements, you understand the measurements of the garments in the pattern, you understand why it's important to do a gauge swatch, and how to read that swatch and see how that's going to work with your garment. And if you don't get gauge, how to do the maths to work out what size you need to do. That bit I found incredibly interesting, because I always hear people on podcasts or in the knitting community saying, oh, I've had to do the maths to work out what to do here. I'm thinking, what maths? I don't get what maths you're doing. It's a knitting pattern. Why are you doing maths? And by going on this workshop, I've understood that if I can't get gauge on using a particular yarn for a particular garment, then I can work out how big, based on the number of stitches per inch I'm doing, I can work out how big my garment would be based on the number of stitches in the pattern. And so that was really interesting, so I really enjoyed that. I hope that's what I learned. Maybe I've got that all wrapped around my neck and that's not what I learned, but I'm pretty sure it was. So we've come away with this leaflet, and armed with a load of knowledge. But the other thing that I thought was really great is that Gwen then offers a follow-up one-to-one session with you. So you can go and meet her for coffee, or you can do it over Skype or the telephone. So once you put things into practice, if you're struggling, you can meet up with her and you know, just go through the bits that you're struggling with, which I thought was great, because I often, you know, go on these type of things and think, oh yeah, I've got this, I know exactly what I'm doing, and then when I try to put the principles in practice, I really don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, I haven't put any of these into practice yet. I have a garment planned, so we shall see what happens when I try and do that garment. So that's the workshop. So what have I got on my needles at the moment? So I am currently knitting out of a pattern out of this magazine. So this is Rowan magazine, number 62. I bought this from John Lewis, but you can buy it online straight from Rowan. Well, you certainly can in the UK, and I know that you can get it abroad as well. How easily, I don't know. But I've also noticed that Hobbycraft has started stocking it online on their website. How long that's going to be for, I don't know. I don't know whether this is going to be a regular thing or not. But anyway, I was in John Lewis looking at this magazine, and there were some really lovely patterns in the magazine. So I thought, yeah, I'll get this book. So I'll just show you a few of them. So there's this one. So the leaf design on that is absolutely beautiful, and that's called The Grassmore by Lisa Richardson, and it's using their hemp tweed. So all these are obviously using Rowan yarns. You don't have to use their yarns to make them, of course. And then another one that caught my eye for the winter, I think this is just stunning. So this is a really long hooded cardigan, and that's called Sweeting, and again by Lisa Richardson, who's the designer. The one thing I really like about Rowan magazine, if you are buying online, if you go onto their website, you can see the pictures of all the designs within the magazine, so you've got an idea of what you're buying before you buy it. Because I often think, oh, I like one design that I've seen, I don't know, somebody make, but then go to buy it, and it's an investment, these magazines. I mean, this one's £12.50, you know, so it's not cheap, and I want to know that I'm going to make more than one pattern out of it. And so if you go on their website, it lists the patterns, but then it gives you a picture of all the patterns within the book. And it's also a magazine, so it's got articles in it as well, which I find really interesting, really well written. It's really good quality as well. So the pattern that I'm doing is this one. Now this picture is a little bit misleading, because you can see the neckline looks like it's got a scooped neckline, when in fact that is actually a crochet cowl, whereas the top I'm making is knitted. So the picture's got a cowl over the top of the top, and the only pictures in the magazine are with the top and the cowl, so it is a little bit misleading. You do have to make them separately. But when I was in John Lewis, they'd knitted up a sample of this top in the colourway shown here. It was really lovely, so I quite liked it, and I quite liked the neckline on that, so decided to buy the magazine and the wool while I was there, because they had the wool in stock as well. So I'll show you the colour that I'm using. I will talk about my bag that I have here in the sewing section, but for now, so I've done the back of this, and I just have the neck stitches on some needles. So this is the back. There's nothing to it really, it's just a square. It's fairly straightforward. Knit this, not being used to knitting garments, I didn't want to knit anything too technical, so this is a fairly straightforward knit. it's got a garter band at the bottom, and then it's just stockinette, and then some decreases for the waist, and then you put some little increases for the sleeves in. They're only little sort of sleeves there. So that's coming along. I've cast on the front and I'm working on that. And the wool that I'm using is Rowan Kid Silk Haze. So that's there, and that is 70% mohair and 30% silk. It's really lovely yarn, really soft and light and fluffy. I think I am going to have to wear it with something a bit longer sleeved under it, because I think it will irritate me. I know most people, when they're testing to see if something will irritate them, they put it on the neck, but I tend to have to put it on my underarm here, because that's where I get irritated the most. And it might not irritate my neck, but it will irritate my underarm. So that's what I'm using. So far so good. One thing I will say about the patterns in this book is there's no hand holding in these. So if you're used to knitting from patterns on Ravelry, where the designers, you know, take you through step by step, that doesn't happen in these patterns. They're just a straightforward pattern, and I've managed fine to use the pattern. But to be honest, I have looked up a few of the techniques or the stitches in a stitch directory, or had to Google what they were talking about, or read an instruction a few times just to get my head around what they were trying to tell me. But that's just because I'm a beginner, and I've still managed fine. I suppose the proof will be in the finished garment if I actually manage to finish it and it turns out okay. Well, so we'll have to see about that. So hopefully I'll have a bit more to show on the next episode. But as I've said, I'm not a fast knitter, so I don't expect to be finished by the time I film again. But hopefully I'll have made some progress on that. What I'm crocheting. So at the moment I am crocheting out of, not the book that I've got in my hand, excuse me, try again. So I'm crocheting out of this book. Again, this is another magazine, or bookazine I think they like to call it, and it's Yarn Bookazine by Shapies, and this is edition number 4, and it's Dutch Masters edition. This is another book. I've got a few of these bookazines, and again I have a few that I've been meaning to make things from for ages, and then I've put them on the shelf, and then the next one's come along and I think, oh, I want to make things from that. So I finally got around to pulling my finger out and actually making something from this one. So what I'm making out of this one, well, before I go into what I'm making, I'll just show you a couple of the other things in here that I want to make. This in particular, this is a winter light poncho. I love the look of that for the winter. It's massive, it's got some sleeves in, and I can just imagine in the winter with a warm drink curling up with that, like a big blanket. So that I think looks absolutely lovely. So I quite fancy making that out of this maybe after I've done this pattern that I'm doing now. So what I'm making now is this. So this is a bedroom rug, but I'm not using Shapies yarn. It calls for quite a bit of yarn, this pattern. It calls for, I think, 20 balls of their yarn, 100 gram balls, and that's coming out at 2,000 meters. So it is a yarn hungry rug, and crochet uses a lot more yarn than knitting anyway, so you do tend to end up with having to use a lot more yarn. So instead what I'm using is some Karen cakes. One, because these are acrylic, and with it being a rug, I want something that's going to be durable and, you know, not worrying about when it's walked on or things are spilt on it. I can just chuck it in the washing machine and it'll all be fine. But also because I had Karen cakes in my stash. I got one from somebody I did a swap with. I think it was a fibre share swap. I've done a couple of different swaps, but I'm pretty sure that's where this one came from. And I've been wanting to make something that I'm going to keep for, you know, and enjoy, and not just make something for the sake of using up the Karen cake, if that makes sense. With it being a gift, I want to make something a bit more special with it. So that's the plan. So where I'm at so far, so I really like the texture that's coming out on this. It's all bobbly, so really nice texture. And the Karen cakes that I'm going to be using, I will pop up a picture over here and hopefully be putting their names on there. But I'm going to be using Blueberry Parfait, which is this one, and that's the one I've started with. And the reason I started with that one is because it is very similar to the colours used in the Shapey's yarn colours. If you can see, there's a green in this corner and yellow. Now I won't get this triangular effect here because this is, you're changing yarns, you're crocheting a bit, changing the yarn and crocheting the rest of that line to get that effect. Whereas I'm just going to crochet across and the colours will land as they land. But I thought this one had very similar colours, so I thought that would be a great one to start with. And then I have the next one, I've got Blueberry Cheesecake. Now this one is all wound up because I started with this one and then changed my mind when I saw this other one online. So that's the next one I'm doing. Then I've got various other colours, and I don't know what order I'm going to do them in, but these two are incredibly similar, so I think they'll go in the middle somewhere. And we've got Blueberry Muffin on that one, and we've got Berries and Cream on that one, and then finally we've got Cake Pop on that one. So Cake Pop I think will definitely be the last colour that I use. Sorry, with my face right up to the camera there. So yes, I'm hoping that won't take me too long. I am faster at crocheting than I am knitting, but I don't know whether to leave that really light one to the end or use it in the middle here and then use one of the darker ones. So I think that's what I might do. I might do the colour I'm doing first, then the second colour I'd said, then the Cake Pop in the middle, and then maybe the other two at the end. I think would maybe work better now I've thought about it, but we'll have to see. I'll decide when I get there. I'm not convinced I've got enough yarn, because with the Karen cakes I've only got 1,750 meters, but I'm going to see how the rug looks at that, because I haven't done a gauge swatch, and I suspect I'm doing a much bigger gauge on that. So that's the end of the crochet section, so let's move on. So for my final two sections, I've got, I was going to go on to what I'm reading, which is non-craft related. So what I'll do, I have a giveaway for my podcast that is craft related. So I thought what I would do is announce the giveaway first, and then people who aren't interested in non-craft related reading can switch off there and they won't miss out on the giveaway. So as a thank you or a welcome to my podcast, I wanted to do a little giveaway, and I also want to encourage people to I want to build a community on Ravelry. So this will be a Ravelry giveaway, a hosted giveaway, and in Ravelry I'll start a thread asking you a little bit about yourself, what crafts you like and where you're watching from. I'd love to know where in the world people watch podcasts from, because I noticed on different podcasts there's people from all over the world, and I think that's fantastic that a craft like knitting or crochet, sewing, or just crafts in general can pull people together and create a community, albeit even if it's online. So I would like to try and do that as well. So what I have to give away is two of these. They will go to two separate people, so there'll be two winners, and this is the yarn. It's got beautiful blues, greens, greys. I just love this yarn. Now this yarn, I don't know if you'll be able to see the label. I don't think it's going to focus on the label because it's white, but this yarn is by Lucy Locketland, and Lucy has a little shop in Northumberland, and I met her. I went on one of Lucy's budget retreats, and I can tell you I went for the weekend and had the most lovely time there. Lucy is a wonderful host. It is a budget retreat. There wasn't any workshops on the one I went on, but it was just fabulous. It was on the coast, so we went on beach walks, spent time knitting, having an odd glass of wine, coffee, cake, and just chatting in with a group of people that were all interested in the same thing as you. We had all come from a variety of backgrounds, don't get me wrong. We were you know, mixed backgrounds of groups and ages. There weren't any men on it, but which is a shame, because there's some, you know, wonderful men out there in the knitting community, but it was fabulous. So if you have a look at that, if you have a look at Lucy Locketland, and I will put the details up here, so you can go to her website if you fancy going on one of the retreats. Then I recommend looking that up. And this is hand dyed yarn by Lucy, just beautiful yarn. So she also sells online, as well as having a shop. She does sell online, and she has some books. I've got from her, I've got some lovely books. She has sales every now and then that I try to support her on. So she's lucylocketland.co.uk for that, but she's also on Instagram as well. Oh, that's something I forgot to say at the beginning of the podcast, and I will have hopefully put the details up maybe at the beginning if I can find a space to put them in. If not, then my details are on Ravelry. I am Woolly Ferret, all one word, and that's where I will be posting the thread for this. So I will put the details on the screen now again if I haven't put them up in the beginning. So it's Woolly Ferret on Ravelry, all one word, and on Instagram I'm Elisa Saxton, all one word as well, and that's where I'm most active. So this yarn, that is 50% alpaca, 25% silk and 25% linen, and it's 100 grams, 400 meters. oh, it's incredibly soft, beautiful yarn. So I have 2 of these to give away, and what my plan is, I'm going to give away 1 to the first person that comments on the thread. That's because I think it's really sometimes daunting to be that first person to come on and start a thread and comment. Well, it is for me. I always wait for other people to and then think I'm going to post something on the thread. So yeah, for the first person there's 1 hank of yarn, and then I'm going to do a random numbers generator for the second person. Now feel free to chatter in that thread, please. That's what it's all about. It's community, so feel free to chatter in that thread. But for when I draw, I'm only going to give away that hank of yarn to the lead in that thread. So not the first person. The first person will get 1, but the person who's posting. So if other people comment on their posts, then I'll eliminate them from the draw. I will just redraw until I find a lead post. So please chatter. That's what it's all about. So yes, so if you want to get your hands on some of this yarn, then go across to Ravelry and post a little bit about yourself. So that's it for crafting related news. I am going to talk a little bit about books I'm reading, simply because I love reading, and for work when I'm on long train journeys, I can't always knit because I'm usually on a train stuffed to the rafters with people, and trying to knit is almost impossible. I do sometimes, I take some socks sometimes, but usually I pick up a book to read, and it helps me to while away the journey. Usually I'm off to London or somewhere occasionally for work. So thank you if you join me and you're not carrying on to the next section. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. It is a work in progress. This is the first time attempt to do anything like this, so hopefully it was okay. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. I thank you for spending a little bit of time with me, and I hope you do find podcasts that is your cup of tea. There are many podcasters out there, and we're all different. So if I'm not your cup of tea and you haven't watched a podcast before, don't let it put you off. Go off and have a look at others. And if you have enjoyed it, then I hope to see you for the next episode. So anyway, books. First book I want to talk about is this book. This is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Oh, it's a mouthful. This is some title for a book, let me tell you. Anyway, it's by Mary Ann Schaffer and Annie Burrows. I really liked this book. It was really enjoyable. It's about a author who was writing a column in the paper during the war, and the war's over, and I think she's lost herself a little bit, and where she fits now in society, and what her role is, and what the future is. And she befriends people from Guernsey that were in this literary, can't say it, I apologise, this is ridiculous, how can I not say this word? Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. So yeah, for me this was a really quiet book. It was just a pleasant read. It was quiet, it wasn't too taxing. My dog's barking in the background, I hope you can't hear him. He decides early afternoon that it's dinner time, and it's 2 hours from dinner, but he decides it's dinner time, and if there isn't somebody there to tell him off, oh, he stopped. Okay. So yes, this is book number 1. It was really quiet book and really enjoyable. So what I plan to do is I normally give my books to charity shop after I finish them, unless it's one I really want to keep. So every now and then novels I keep, and I can't part with them for whatever reason. I have an attachment to them, and sometimes if I've bought a series of books I'll keep those, but the rest I usually give to the charity shop. So rather than do that, I thought I might give them away to watchers of the podcast. So I'll tell you how to do that at the end, once I've told you about the other book I've been reading. So the next book that I've been reading is this one, and this is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gale Honeyman. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Oh, it took me a couple of chapters to get into it, and it's not the writing. It's because the protagonist, or the main character in the book, is so different than what you're used to as a, oh, I don't know, as a protagonist. She's very different, and the story's very different. But it's a story about, I think, about loneliness, and it really makes you think about how we perceive others who are different from us, and don't necessarily to conform to the norms, or what mainstream, rather than the norms, mainstream society. And it was I found it really thought-provoking, and I thought part way through I knew exactly what was going to happen in this book. Oh, I know, and that's not what happened at all. It didn't go down the path that in my head I thought it was going to go down, and it was thought-provoking and heartbreaking at times, funny at times, but also uplifting in its own way. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So if you get a chance to read this, I definitely recommend it. It's a lovely book, and I will be giving these two books away separately, so two different people. So if you would like one of these books, they are my books, so they are second-hand books. I've read them and I'm passing them on. If you do win and you read it and you no longer want it, if you want to retain it, that's fine. If you want to keep it on your bookshelf, I have no qualms with that, because I love books and I find them hard to part with as well. But novels I've had to, because there's no space. But if you're going to pass it up, if you're not, you finished it and you don't retain it, please pass it on to somebody else for free, either to a charity shop, so that they can get the money for selling it, and then somebody can buy it cheaply, or donate it, to a friend, or to a stranger in the train station, or whatever. But pass it on once you've read, if you can. So to win a copy, or my old copy of these, then I simply would like you to comment in the comments below on YouTube, just to say, you can just put on the comment in brackets book, and then which book you would like. So if you want this Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, you can just put something like book Guernsey or book potato, if that's easier, because quite frankly that'd be easier for me if I was typing it. So if you want this one, book either Guernsey or potato, just so I know which book you would like. Or if you would like this one, then just book, and in brackets, and Eleanor. If you don't mind which one, and you want to be entered to win either, and you don't have a specific choice, then just put book in brackets, and I'll put you in the draw for both. And then you can comment any other comments you want to comment, if you like, but there's no need to comment anything else. If you just want to enter the book, just put book, and that's fine as well. So I think that is it. So if you've made it to the end and I haven't bored the pants off you, well, it's quite possible, thank you very much for joining me on this episode. And if somebody actually watches, then I will record another episode I'm hoping for 1 or 2. I'm not expecting mass volume of people coming along, because I know there's loads and loads of podcasts out there. But if you did enjoy it, I hope to see you next time. And one thing I do want to say is, remember to take some time for yourself. We all lead busy lives, and we can often get caught up in the busyness of everything and forget to take time out for ourselves. Now, whether that's time crafting, reading, or simply sitting with a cup of tea in a quiet space, whatever it is, remember to take that time. It's incredibly important for our mental well-being and physical well-being. So that's it. Thank you and bye.